So we're in Oxford, we're at the Wolvercote Cemetery, and we're gonna try and find Tolkien's grave. I'd be very surprised if it was actually
It's somewhere in here, eventually.
But let's have a look. Now found the graves. The first one, there's two, in loving memory of John Francis.
Real Tolkien.
There's his grave there. Quite understated.
Yeah.
And if we turn over,
with deep and enduring gratitude for Rohan, Lorien and Frodo.
so we're going to leave a little message here. Hail Tolkien. Thank you for Ea, Arda and Middle-earth. Thank you for Fëanor, Beleg, Manwë and Turin, and Christopher, Namarie. And then we've left a little mention of our YouTube channel, Santuri Tolkien Memories.
Lord Dunsany is possibly, he's considered one of the most reputed and the most respected of all fantasy writers. He came before Tolkien, he came before, and he's actually contemporary with Lovecraft. I believe those two writers actually had quite close contact. And so Dunsany, he wrote an incredible amount, and it's all varied. So he really is one of those writers that just has such a big had such a big impact on fantasy. Charon leaned forward and rode. All things were one with his weariness. It was not with him a matter of years or of centuries, but of wide floods of time, and an old heaviness and a pain in the arms that had become for him part of the scheme that the gods had made, and was of a piece with eternity. Today we're going to be talking about In the Land of Time and Other Fantasy Tales by Dunsany. The start of this book concerns the Pagana mythology, or Pagana, I'll say Pagana for now. If you enjoy the Silmarillion, there's a very high chance that you'll enjoy this, the Pagana mythology. Very, very dark and archaic, very weighty language. My idea is, it's related to the use of fantastical places in fantastical literature, and fantasy and weird literature. This journey to try and find the twilight realm or border of Elfland. So Alveric's journey, the long search of Alveric. To me, that's sort of indicative of this feeling of yearning. There's a Dunsany short story, I think it's called The City in the Window or something like this. It's about a man who buys a window or sort of a painting, I can't quite remember, it's a long time ago that I read it. He looks through the window or frame, and he envisages a fantastical city. And I want to cover things like this. Ryan's going to be reviewing The King of Elfland's Daughter, which is, I believe, it might have been the first video that I reviewed on Oldhamward.
Oh really?
I think so. Actually, I think it was.
We did talk about King of Elfland's Daughter in the last video with Stephen, the round table discussion.
Indeed, and that was the impetus for Ryan starting The King of Elfland's Daughter. It's an interesting one today, 51 Tales by Lord Dunsany. In the past, maybe week and a half, I decided to change my thesis idea, specifically to looking at Lord Dunsany's fiction. I'm interested in liminality and non-anthropocentrism in Dunsany's fiction, so I decided to change my thesis on that, and I will actually be, if anyone's interested, making a video on that very topic. What I've read of Dunsany, what I've not read, what I think about his fiction. So it feels like it has a lot for everyone, despite the fact that it's a very short book. It was strange. I had not thought of the majesty of the street lamp, and his long watching over drifting men, but he was not beneath the notice of these cloaked strangers. And then one murmured to the street, "Art thou weary, street? Yet a little longer they shall go up and down, and keep thee clad with tar and wooden bricks. Be patient, street. In a while the earthquake cometh." So I thought I must do a thesis on Dunsany and enchantment. So I think a good way of describing this would just be to read an excellent summary by Patrick Curry. I shall first maintain that enchantment considered anthropologically as a human experience, can be characterised in terms of some relatively stable attributes: wonder or existential wonder, concrete magic, which I'll speak about later on, non-anthropocentric animism, embodiment and embeddedness, a relational ontology, and unbiddability or wildness. Second, I shall argue that these entail a radical inconsistency with some of the dominant principles correctly characterised as modernist or enlightenment. I am going to be focusing on not just Dunsany but also Tolkien as well. For Patrick Curry at least, Tolkien was a master of enchantment in the sense, that's kind of a contradiction in terms there, but Tolkien that is, he knew the fundamental principles of enchantment in the sense of when we think of the Fellowship going into Lothlorien, that's a fundamentally enchanting moment. They are enchanted by Lothlorien. And my whole idea then is essentially to try and show that Dunsany is on par, I think, with Tolkien's enchantment, his keenness for enchantment.
But when the sun has set on some stormy days, all at once repentant at evening, and those glittering cliffs reveal themselves which we almost take to be clouds, and it is twilight with us, as it is forever with them, then on their gleaming summits we see those golden domes that overpeer the edges of the world, and seem to dance with dignity and calm in that gentle light of evening that is wonder's native haunt.
He seems to have a keenness for the dynamics of enchantment, which I've discussed before. So there's kind of this relational quality to his writing a lot of the time. But that's a between aspect. The downward aspect, and the very fact that Dunsany, he looks to the earth, he is very much, he says in Patches of Sunlight, his autobiography, he says, I would not be writing these stories, I would not be writing this autobiography if I thought that I was a man of genius, if I thought that my creative powers came from anywhere outside the earth. That's what I love about Dunsany. He understands the intrinsic value of nature.